How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome to another episode of Project Geekology. This is episode 101, but today we're only going to be talking about three what, you might ask? Well, three rings gifted to the race of elves. And I'm really excited about it because now we finally have some idea as to what, the title's namesake of Lord of the Rings of Power is all about. We're starting to see the forging of the Great Rings. And yeah, we have a lot to talk about as we start discussing the next four episodes, the final four episodes of season 1 of Rings of Power. But as always, I'm your host, Dakota. I'm joined as always with
Anthony, and I'm actually glad that we finally see some of the Rings of Power. I'm like, dude, the show's called Rings of Power. Where are the Rings of Power? And
we found
we're
them.
starting to see that. Alrighty, so joining us this week for part 2 of season 1 is
Rich, your local Uruk enthusiast and supporter.
We call them orcs on this podcast, buddy.
Whoa.
Actually, it's both. It's both. I think that Adar is the Uruk, but his followers are orcs.
Okay, I like that. Ooh,
that's
I like that.
well.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what they are. I would say Uruk is like a sacred thing. It's an actual like
their own race of people,
right. It's
because they were the elves,
corrupted
that turned
elves,
into
right? But
orcs. Yeah.
But the orcs were like, I think, created by him. But we'll talk more about that later. We'll get into it. I know I usually start off with what I've been up to, but you know what? Let's start with Rich again. What have you been up to this past week, Rich? Did you watch season 1 a second and a third time?
I did not. I watched the 4 episodes we're talking about again. One more time actually. So I did. And then Pokemon, the trading card game Pocket.
Oh yeah, Dakota and I were
released.
talking about that.
It's a thing, guys. Actually, I don't know if you guys can notice here on the Zoom call what my full name is. Can you point that out to the audience, Anthony?
Rich Ketchum.
Yeah, because I gotta catch them all, baby. So thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully you're not catching rings because what that does to people in Middle Earth. Not good stuff. Yeah, we're happy to have you on, Rich. And I still haven't gotten hooked on TCG Pocket. I will play for maybe like 10 minutes a day, and then I will forget it existed, and then I see my wife playing, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can open a pack. And I can. But
there's nothing better than having I overheard a student was looking at my profile and showing another student how good my cards were. And
that's cool.
That was a level of that's in my teaching career in 16 years. I'm not going to lie to you. That's like top 8 right there. Like just kid going, wow, look at this guy's cards, man. Like he's got some good pulls.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool.
Throwing down on the pools.
Ooh, got a lot of XCs,
really exciting.
Baby. You guys got to get in this. All right. Next week, I expect to hear you guys have the best cards in the game. Some Mewtwo's.
Oh, well, I mean, I play the game a bit, and I do have Mewtwo's. I've been trying to get that the one that is eluding me is that like animated one.
Oh yeah, the scenic ones where they tell a visual story. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law, she was extremely lucky. In her first ever pull, she got the Golden Charizard. What? And her second pull, she got the Scenic Mewtwo. So I've yet to come across any cards that good in the like 2 or 3 weeks that I've been playing at this point. But so she has like really good luck with this game.
God tier pulls, man.
I don't.
No.
I mean, I have some like pretty decent cards, like some nice cards, but like Golden Charizard, yeah, I don't got that.
Not that. Yeah. Sister-in-law has it for some reason. Anthony, what have you been up to?
So
outside of Pokemon TCG Pocket, of course.
So I had sent you a trailer for a documentary called The Remarkable Life of Ebelin. And
you did send me that, and I watched the trailer, and it looked really good.
It is really good. It's about this guy named Matt Steen, and so he had in 2014 he passed away. So this is like kind of like talking about his life and leading up to his death. And so he was diagnosed, I think, at like 4 or 5 with this degenerative disease called Duchenne or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, over time, he was able, when he was younger, he could walk and stuff. Then it got to the point to where he needed a wheelchair. And then, eventually, like, he could barely, like, move. But, like, his parents allowed him to game, because he really couldn't do anything like sports and not really, like, play with kids too much, really. And so, he, like I said, he gamed a lot, and he was really, really big into World of Warcraft. So, I mean, I'm going to, tell you a bit about it. I mean, it's still, like, worth watching, even with me talking about it. His family, everybody else, like, only saw this guy that was, like, spending gaming, like, gaming all day. But it's like, what are you going to say? Because, like, that's really all he can do. He had this really cool setup, though, that, like, he couldn't really, like, move his, like, his arms and, like, like, to type and to, like, move the mouse. But he had, like, a way, and, like, these buttons, like, set up on his mouse, and, like, this other thing that he was able to kind of, like, move. And, like, he played it, like, in this kind of way. Like, he had all these, like, little, like, attachments so that he could type,
like a
and
custom keyboard?
It was, like, this, like, custom thing. And so he set up a blog and everything. And so his parents, when he eventually passed away, his parents didn't know how to, like, let, the people that he used to game with know, like, hey, look, he passed away. But they remembered his password of his blog. And so they just put, like, hey, my adventure is over. And then that, Matt's passed away. This is his parents. And so, they ended up getting all these crazy, like, emails, because they put down, like, their email, like, hey, just reach out to us. And, like, a bunch of people from WoW, like, in his guild, like, this guy was amazing. He did this and that. He was really there for me. And, like, just, like, came pouring in like crazy. And, like, this dude was, like, a part of, like, really close, like, knit group. And, they were, one of the things that his parents were afraid of was that, he would never experience things like love, which he kind of did. And, obviously, look, we know the stories about people meeting in WoW. And so, like, he met somebody in WoW. I mean, they didn't really, like, date or anything, but, like, they would flirt online and stuff. But, I mean, he knew what she looked like, because, like, there was times where the guild would get together and, like, they would take pictures and, like, kind of share it to him. They wanted him to come out, but he wouldn't, because he never told them about it, about what he was going through. But, even though, like, I kind of told you, like, the gist of what it is, it's still really, like, worth watching, because they tell a huge chunk of the story through WoW.
Yeah, I was watching the trailer, just to jump in, Anthony, watching the trailer is pretty much kind of enough to kind of encapsulate what the story is about. It's this guy, yeah, like, as you said, he didn't really have a life outside of World of Warcraft because of the circumstances that he, existed in. But they created a documentary using World of Warcraft's, like, in-game graphics to, like, tell his life through. And I think that that's really cool.
And, like, custom animations, within the game.
Yeah.
Which was, like, really, really cool. Like, and I thought that was a really nice, like, touch. And it was really, really cool, because I know that, and don't get me wrong, like, it can be anything, even too much of anything good can be bad for you. But, I know that a lot of people, they see gaming and they're like, this person doesn't really have a social life. Well, there are people out there that can't really have social lives, even though they would love to have a social life, maybe, but they can still establish them in some kind of way. And video games sometimes does that. The amount of videos that I've seen online where people meet these people that they've been gaming with for 10 years but never met, but they eventually meet and get together. And it's like it's not awkward, because it's like, I've known you for this long. I've known you for 10, 15 years. It's just, we're face to face, So
yeah, I got to check this documentary out. It's called, I just pulled it up. What was it called?
The Remarkable Life of Ebelin. That was his...
The Remarkable Life of Ibelin.
Ibelin, yeah.
Yeah.
That was his WoW name. So, but yeah,
That's cool.
that was a really good documentary. One of my coworkers told me about it, and I sat down and watched it. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think that it really did a lot, showing that gaming isn't always bad. It can be, but it can be really, really a great and special thing, for people. And other than that, I mean, yeah, I have been playing a little bit of WoW. They have a memorial for him in the game in Elwynn Forest.
Oh, I think I heard about this.
Yeah,
Has it been there for a while?
it might have been.
I think it has. I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went by to like check it out and visit it, and dude, it's literally like the same as his headstone in real life.
Oh, that's really
Dude,
cool.
his headstone
That's
is like
special.
amazing. I'm like, dude, like the artistry on it, it's like something that you would see in WoW, but like in real life.
That's really cool.
So
I definitely plan to check
yeah,
that out.
definitely check it out. But yeah, enough about me. How about you, Dakota?
Man, the entire time you were talking, I was like racking in my head about like what the heck have I been up to?
Dakota's like, I've done nothing.
I mean, I have done stuff here and there. Mostly, it's been in service of like my Avatar timeline video. I did today basically create a timeline dating system because I didn't like the dating system that the fans used. So I made something that I find is easier to manage. Do I want to talk about that here? Basically, I use the first avatar as the means for like when to start the dating forward and backward.
As you should.
Instead of it's just like it's the era of the avatar, it makes the most sense. The fans because I guess this dating system has predated the Legend of Korra, so they didn't really know about Juan. So the fans for a long time have been using AG and BG, which is before and after the Air Nomad genocide. Which is a little macabre. I never really liked it, and it's awkward because the 100-Year War makes it just it gets confusing. I never liked it, so I just kind of ignored it.
What's your dating
and it's not
system
canonical
called?
anyway. So it's ER and EA. So
Electronic
the era
Arts?
of Rava, Electronic Arts, the era of Rava, which is the light spirit, and the era of the Avatar.
Okay.
Because in the episode with Juan, there's a line by Vatu that says the era of Rava is over, and there's also another line when Kyoshi's talking to like the spirit of Korra, where she's just like, if you don't reconnect with your past lives, our era is over. And I'm thinking, what is our era? Well, it's the era of the Avatar. So it's the era of Rava and the era of the Avatar. It seems pretty simple to me. So I just used that as the divide. And yeah, so the second harmonic convergence that we see, in Korra's time is basically 10,000 years. So it's 10,000 EA.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's a big thing that I've been up to. I'm still working on putting dates to all the little time periods and zones within the timeline, but I am moving forward with it. Oh, another thing I'm working on is the background to my video. So for all of my like big content, I like to do like a scrolling background of sorts where I incorporate some sort of art or some sort of feature from within the world that I'm talking about as just kind of a backdrop for what I say, and it just kind of makes it, in my opinion, I think it makes it look a little bit more professional, a little more put together. Like I put a lot of thought into it, and I have. So for this one, I'm using a bunch of concept art from both The Legend of Korra and the Last Airbender, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm just kind of like layering it over each other, and that's kind of what I did with my Frozen video. And yeah, I like the way that Frozen video came out, so I'm gonna do the same basically for this video, where I'm layering a whole bunch of different concept art onto like a big scrolling image that will eventually make up the background visuals for my video.
Sweet. That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of work goes into it. And if you're from my YouTube channel trying to glean some information about what I'm working on, I'm sorry it's taking so long. I have a lot of other stuff going on in my life. I'm literally building a house, and I plan on moving in a couple months. So there's a lot going on, like in my like actual day-to-day job or day-to-day life outside of my 40-hour work week.
Yeah,
so
man.
I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, guys, like give the man a break. He's now also working on his OSHA 40.
I don't wish that upon anyone.
That's the next level. Instead of the OSHA 30, you got the OSHA 40. Oh my god.
I think there is an OSHA 60 for like foremans. I think there's like for foremans and like general contractors. I think
Dakota would be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want an OSHA 60.
No, I think those dreams are behind me. I can't do that. Guys, let's talk a little bit about the Rings of Power. One thing that we didn't really speak about last week is that some of the characters, specifically the elves that were, looking over the Southlands, they were captured by orcs. We never really talked about like that experience of like them trying to break free from all that. Why can't I remember this guy's name? I know it's Bronwyn and
Arondir.
Yeah. Arondir, he finds a way to break free from the orcs, and Uruks.
Well, he's let go.
Whatever we want to call him.
He was let go.
Thank you for the respect.
He was let go to deliver a message.
That's right. Yes, yeah. He was let go to deliver a message to the people of the Southlands, basically to come to serve the true ruler of the Southlands, who at this point we all think is Sauron, but this guy apparently hates Sauron. That was a twist.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Seriously, it's like a power struggle,
Yeah, and then there's, I think, after that we enter like the new episodes that we're covering this week, where the humans of the Southlands basically have a little, not a civil war necessarily, but some sort of civil unrest where they divide into people who they choose to follow. The people who remember, I guess, or maybe not remember, but the people who like idolize their forebears who pledged allegiance to Sauron and Morgoth, they chose to ally themselves with the orcs or the Uruks. While
both.
The other people like just kind of like congregated at this big watchtower sort of thing and awaited these Uruks, to come and attack them, which was a really cool idea because they were able to lay a huge trap on them.
It really is insane how the show really sets up the first 4 episodes, really sets up the last 4 episodes, because it goes from like 0 to 60 like in like by the end of episode 5, and then like 6, 7, 8, it's like, dude, what is going on? There's like it gets so crazy, dude.
What I will say is by episode 6 it feels like a different show.
It really does. Yeah.
And so I watched 7 and 8 just before recording today, and I will say by episode 7 I just kind of felt like giddy. Like I was like, ooh, it's Lord of the Rings again.
Yeah, like, it really did feel into it. I agree.
Prior to this, I'm just like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it, and that's why I just didn't
continue.
Didn't do anything for me. It didn't do anything for me the first time a couple years back, and I'll be honest, it was fun to watch again. For last week's episode of, we were covering the first 4 episodes, but it wasn't until this episode that specifically episode 7 rolled around, and I was just like, oh, I feel it now. I get where this is heading. Rich, what are your thoughts going into these last 4 episodes? Obviously, you've seen not only these episodes many times, but you've gone past that point into season 2 and finished that. Obviously, don't tell us what you think about season 2, but how do you feel coming back to these episodes having watched season 2?
I guess, like I said last week, a lot of I just feel like so many of the blanks were filled in for me as I'm watching that, I'm really able to appreciate it more. So as excited as you were to rewatch these 4, I mean, when Waldrag, all right, falls in front of Adar.
Yes.
Right. And pledges, right, to him. To Sauron. It's just I love that. I love that moment. I don't know if I'm sick for loving it, but just when and knowing what I had already known it, so like seeing it again is just being able to study their faces, just magnificent. I really enjoyed it. And this one really does. I think that the second half of the season really did a good job of kind of building to season 2. The wait was really long is another thing that, like, seeing it again is really fun because I finished it and then I had to wait so long to find out what was going to happen next, And as we'll talk about this episode, I got to see some of like what I knew was going to happen kind of answered for me later on in the kind of the second season. But I just seeing it so close together, I really appreciated it that much more. There's almost a part of me that feels like these would almost work better as movies, especially with just the time between seasons. I don't know. That just might be my greedy heart, but I love seeing it together. The flow of it is so enjoyable. It's like I don't remember what it was like to have to watch the Fellowship of the Ring and then wait for the next one to come out. Like now I spoil myself and become a glutton and watch 12 straight hours, and I just want to kind of dive into Middle Earth and watch all of these episodes.
And you didn't have to wait long for those movies either because of the fact that they were filmed together, So like you got Fellowship of the Ring, and then the next year you got the Two Towers, and then the following year you got the Return of the King. I don't think that there was a year gap, was there?
No, it was 2001 through 2003. But what was fantastic was, they would intersperse, like they kept releasing the extended editions a couple months before the following movie. So it's like you got to watch them again with new information, then watch the new movie, and then watch that new movie again with new information. So it was really cool. That was a really good time to be a fan of Lord of the Rings. This is probably the best time to be a fan of Lord of the Rings because, I think they're the best movies ever created, personally. But
dude, I love them.
As far as what you were saying, Rich, like you kind of wish these were movies, and in a way they're all feature length, I think. Mm-hmm. Maybe not feature length. I think that would be 90 minutes. But some of these episodes are like they average about 70 minutes per episode, which is a long time. Like there was clearly no constraint when it comes to, episode length and, like what they wanted to show. It was just like whatever they felt they needed to get onto the screen, they did. And I really appreciate that because it doesn't ever feel extremely rushed.
Yeah, I remember there are episodes of, I'm not trying to take shots at it, I like the show, but there were episodes of Acolyte or even I personally kind of like Kenobi, and there would be episodes where I would just be like, it's over? Like, I have to wait another week? That's it? You gave me 37 minutes?
Oh, no, it's highway robbery. Yeah, sometimes I think for the Acolyte definitely needed longer episodes. I don't want to get too bogged down into like Acolyte discussion because it's so difficult to compare these two shows, but it kind of needs comparison because they have a similar budget season wise, and it's frustrating because this is such they clearly stretch the budget to in extreme ways with this show as opposed to what they were able to do with the Acolyte, and there's really no comparison in terms of the actual quality of the product that was released. Whether you like this or not, or whether you like Acolyte or not is a different story, but I'm talking just pure quality here. Acolyte didn't look bad, but it certainly didn't feel rich and wealthy like this show constantly does. Every scene is an abundance of things to look at, and lots of bright colors and dark darknesses. It's really, it runs the gamut of like everything you want to see in a big fantasy epic. So yeah, that was really cool. In the following episode, after they destroy the bridge, the people in, I think episode 6 is the big battle episode, if I remember correctly, where the people of the Southlands, they kind of bunker down into their village. They wait for nighttime and they have this big ambush where they know the orcs are coming, Uruks, and Rich just keeps shaking his head whenever I say orcs.
I mean, but you're not wrong, Rich. Though. I mean, there are orcs. I know, and there is a Uruk, but you know what? They're both
for the sake of the meme. We gotta continue.
Let me tell you,
But
I'm gonna
yeah,
be honest with you. That fight, like, I mean, I like that fight, but after the initial skirmish, I said, yeah, no way. It said like that. I said, dude, we saw that how big their force was. I said, dude, this is a tiny little battle. They thought they won. Yeah, right. And then when I
well, I
started to see
guess
the arrows come out of the thing, I said, yep.
I guess the thing that you can kind of balance that with is they probably assumed they destroyed most of the army when they attacked the watchtower, and they were stuck inside the watchtower when it crumbled. But somehow they have a much bigger army. You know, once the second wave of Uruks arrive into their village.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir. So yeah, I see what you're saying, Anthony, but I think there was also some plausible deniability in terms of like they thought they killed a lot of them already, but turns out not enough.
Shoot, even the force that went into the watchtower was a small one too. You know, I would have been like, for me, I would have been like, no, like it's, you know, it's nice and all, but I'm gonna like keep my head up until like the sun comes up. You know, I'm gonna be like scanning. I just wouldn't trust it. Like it's just, you know, like, and even Galadriel knows, like, you know, like the best way to defeat an orc is by outsmarting them, and like that's what, like, they were that whole thing was like just a setup, like, you know, like they're like, oh, okay, so you're gonna mess with us at the watchtower, okay, like, to the villagers might not have known, but like meta knowledge, like I knew it. I was just like, dude, that there's no way that they finished them off. But it was crazy because they really like backed them into a corner, and I thought some major characters were gonna die. I thought Bronwyn was done. I thought she was out. I was like, oh man, she's.
See, I kind of just assumed she had plot armor just because there's so few named characters that we're following currently. So I assumed she was going to be fine. Turns out, at least for now, she is fine. But let's talk a little bit about Galadriel and her plight in Numenor, and you know, getting those that army out of Numenor, because I'm a little confused. You know, like it seems like sometimes people want to help her, and then sometimes people don't. And then when they do, other people get mad, and when they don't, other people get mad. So I'm really confused. So my big thing is Isildur's sister. She seems like she's on the same wavelength as Isildur and her father for the most part. But then when they decide to help the elf get out of Numenor, she's like the biggest named person who's like trying to get them to stop.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it, don't do it. But like, we don't have a reason for her to like, there, it just seemed like a weird character choice. Like, why wouldn't you want
Probably
this?
for selfish reasons. Like she doesn't want her
Her
father
family
and
going
her
to war or
brother to
something.
go to some distant land to possibly die, which, like, you know, for, I mean, obviously for now we think that Isildur is dead.
Oh, he's got to be dead. I mean, we saw it. We you know, he got crushed.
You know, he got you know, Lord of the Rings has, you know, like further into a little bit further into the future, you know, there's other plans for that. But
Guys, I can't keep it safe. I can't keep it secret. Isildur's gonna live. I'm sorry.
dang
I
it,
spoiled
Rich.
Dang it, Rich. We told you to keep it secret. No, you know what really blew me away was the whole Mount Doom scene.
Okay, hold on. We got to get to that. I feel like we have to edge our way back because
Well,
that is a really fantastic scene. But I still want to talk about like one specific thing with Galadriel and Numenor
okay.
that leads into the Mount Doom scene. So we'll get there for sure. But how do I even like express this? So what are the odds that the clues that she's been hunting down for hundreds of years that have been subtly hinting at the Southlands all along, you know, being Sauron's target, just so happen to fall into place at the exact right time to get the Númenóreans to that village as it's about to be destroyed by those orcs? Like hundreds of years, and like she finally figured it out, and like it was like just in time to help the South. That was like, I think that's one of those moments where like the timeline compression makes things a little illogical for me.
Oh, okay. Like it was a little wild because like they were still on ships when all this stuff was happening.
Right, and we don't actually like, how did she know that there was an immediate threat in the Southlands besides the fact that she saw the sigil of, you know, the mark of the Southlands, which has existed, you know, in various spots around Middle Earth for a couple hundred years, according to the show. Why, like, all of a sudden is it just, like, imperative to get there at this very moment with that army to stop the...
They probably
was there
followed
something
a
I missed?
breadcrumb trail of orcs. Like, I'm assuming that like, they didn't send the whole force into the
No,
town. Also,
they didn't.
there still was like a lot more of them. You know.
I mean, Rich, you've seen it a couple times at this point. Is there anything is there something I missed where Galadriel realized that this was going to happen right at this very moment?
I don't think so at all. I think she was just convinced that they had to go to that the Southlands were in danger. I almost want to say that Halbrand made her think that that was going to be a target.
Yeah, he did. I mean, that's his story, is that he...
Like, I think she still believes that part of the story.
Right.
Right. She still seems to be, you know, like she's kind of, her brain is addled. Like, she can't really kind of separate fact from fiction when it comes to him at this point. And she seems to, I think she's still on that hunch. I don't recall anything that, like, there's nothing presented to us as the audience.
Okay.
I don't believe that indicates that she has some sort of definitive knowledge that she should be there at that place, like a preordained time and date or anything like that. She just...
Okay.
She saw it with her elf eyes.
I mean, I don't think she looked at the Palantir or anything.
That would have been crazy. Like they actually could have used that scene to kind of drive that, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think that would have been an interesting kind of approach to take. But no, it seems that, if I remember correctly, she's just kind of going on this idea that she, you know...
Yeah, so...
She's been going on hunches the whole season, you know?
No, and that's true. But, like, is it, like, wrong to, like, think of this as a contrived moment to, like, get these two groups of people together?
Yeah, it's like my one of my favorite movies of all time is End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he fights the devil. And one time, somebody had something carved onto their body. It said "Christ in New York," and he goes, "Let's search the databases. Maybe it's Chris in New York or Christine York," and then it just stops on her license, and like that's the person that's the person they're looking for.
Oh my god!
He broke the code in 2 seconds. Like, it was just immediate, and it reminded me kind of like of that, like, just that kismet of like, whoa, what great timing. I'm glad, you know, it happens in shows all the time.
Yeah, no, it
right?
does. It does. I'd like to think that's a Rings of Power thing and not a Tolkien thing, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I mean, you know, listen, Gandalf, right? I mean, but see, she's not a wizard. Wizards arrive when they're meant to be there.
Exactly.
You know? So you can look to the sun, you know.
Yeah.
And know that he's going to be there, but you know, these witches of the woods, they're not as reliable.
So they do get there. It's a great scene, actually. You know, Adar is basically kind of reveling in the defeat of the people of the Southlands. He can't wait to just, like, gut everybody and be out and just, like, enact his plan. But then you start to hear the hoofbeats while he's, like, in the inn. And he goes outside, and you see, obviously, the Numenorians coming in force, and they make quick work of him. That's a fantastic scene. Adar gets away. He has what he presumes to be the sword thing, the key, and he doesn't. And eventually, like, they get that back from him. They imprison him and all that. But did we ever see when Waldron got hold of the key, like the actual key?
No, I don't think we got to. I don't think it showed him swipe it, but that was wild. That I was like, dude, like when Theo opened up the rag to like look at it, I thought that Arondir had, like, kind of tricked him just I guess it was like, oh, just toss it in the sea, like, I guess, like, not to really look at it. But then I was like, wait, no, that wouldn't make sense. And then when it cut over to Waldron, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, you
That
know,
slippery snake.
for somebody to, you know, kind of do the old switcheroo, you know? And yeah, man, that was crazy. And then like how that Elven watchtower was kind of like the center of everything to happen after that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the watchtower was kind of holding back the floodgates of some dam, basically. And Waldron turns this key sword, this keyblade almost, if you will.
Dude, I was waiting for you to say that after you said key sword.
He turns the keyblade and it releases these floodwaters, and then we start to finally understand why these orcs or Uruks have been digging throughout all of the Southlands underneath these villages. Obviously, they need to do that because that's a way for them to travel by day. But is there a more nefarious purpose? Indeed, there is. It's a way for the water to travel to where it needs to be so that it disrupts the flow of lava underneath the active volcano or the dormant volcano, turning it active. And Udun turns into Mount Doom as we know it, and it blows. And it's a fantastic way to end the episode.
Yeah. Like when I saw that it exploded, I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, it turned. They turned it to Mount Vesuvius in like quick succession, dude.
And the next episode starts with basically like a Mount Vesuvius type or like a Pompeii-esque landscape where everyone is covered in ash and there's dead bodies everywhere. Galadriel somehow just kind of like eats the smoke as it comes towards her, and she's totally fine.
I can't. So too many people survived. I needed somebody.
There was some fire in that too.
Somebody. I mean, I get it. You know, the plot armor. You know, like all the characters. Like as you said earlier, Dakota. There aren't too many named characters.
Yeah.
You know, to be pulling a Ned Stark over here. But I don't know. Muriel going blind.
The Queen Regent turned blind. Yeah.
I mean, how is she the? Oh, okay. So I just don't understand. Why is she the only one to lose their eyesight in the dust? Does everybody else have? Did they have ski goggles? Is it like when a team wins the World Series, they
all have dark vision?
When she's helping, I might be misremembering, but when she's helping Isildur with that barn that's about to collapse or the building that's about to collapse, I think some like embers fly into her face.
That's what it is?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, I think you're right.
Yeah. But that's so...
It is weird, and it's, you know, it's plot contrivances, but it's all for the purpose of moving the story forward in the end. And
is it just to have her... are we setting up that she's becoming more dedicated and she's taking basically a leap of faith because of her eyesight? You know, now she really does have to be, you know, believer because she can't see it for herself.
Yeah, maybe.
No, she's just gonna she's becoming a Miraluka, so she's gonna use her force sensitivity to guide her way.
Good old Knights of the Old Republic joke there. I gotcha.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I guess I wonder how this works now. Can she still receive visions from the Palantir that's like in her home?
Ooh. Huh. Well, I always thought, for my money, that the visions
were mental.
Mental, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I never thought that you saw them. Like, it's not, what is that, a pensieve?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
a pensieve would be, it actually for me would be problematic. A pensieve, right? Like, you still need your eyes because you're just kind of being put in the other memory. Or is it being put in your brain as well? Ooh, this is quite a question. I'm gonna have to stop here. But I think that for my money, I always, because the way that I want to say there were flashes, and this just might be, you know, not Tolkien lore, but more Jackson lore. But I'm kind of really focusing on the scene where Pippin took the Palantir. And I feel like they were flashing in his brain. I don't know.
No, you're right. You're right. It wasn't a visual that he was actually seeing, and his eyes were rolling in the back of his head anyway, so he wasn't seeing anything like through
Yeah,
his
true.
actual vision.
You are on the money.
But when it comes to stuff like the One Ring, when Frodo puts that on, he actually sees the unseen world. Like that's a visual element instead of like the Palantir, which is a mind element. So I wonder if like that's gonna be her new thing. It's just like, just walking around with Palantir. Maybe that'll help her see a little bit. I doubt it. Obviously, that's not gonna happen. But it'd be fun.
It'd be great. Like she holds it and like she just misses like a barrel that's in the middle of like a road. Because like she saw into the future.
It's her seeing eye Palantir.
Exactly.
Yeah, she uses it for to navigate, kind of like Daredevil a little bit.
It's how she crosses roads. Let's talk a little bit about the stranger with the Harfoots.
Yes, the more and more we spend with the Harfoots, I love those characters so much.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that as well. I think they were kind of annoying me at the first couple episodes, and I did.
You don't like their chant?
Talk a little bit about that. I didn't like the chant, but I do really appreciate the heart that they were given, their sense of community, which is essential for like the hobbits of the Shire to eventually take on, and there is a sense of adventure with them that is kind of stifled because it's not supposed to be something that they are known for, which is also something it's a trait of the hobbits. They're not known for adventure. They're not known for stepping out of what they consider their norm. But just like Frodo and Bilbo before him, it seems like Nori is going down her own little path,
right, where
now she, by the end of the season, she's traveling with the stranger to Rune.
But her people support it. They're like, yeah, go, like we'll miss you, but go ahead. Whereas like the hobbits, they're like, you going up? Hey, get out of here! Like,
yeah, the hobbits have like grown to a place where they've become prideful of
their peace. They're like like an adventure. Like, why would you want to do that? Like, that's stupid. But like, the Harfoots, they really like, it seems like he could use your help. And, and they honestly like help him out a lot because there's this whole thing that happens between, what are those people that show up what were they called? I don't remember. The ones that were looking for Sauron.
I think they were called the Ascetic. And I know that because I had my, my
closed captioning.
Voice captioning. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I had my voice captioning on, and they introduced the characters as the Ascetic, talking to whom they believed is their Lord Sauron.
Right.
So that was a really interesting turn of events.
So we do get a bit more of an identity of who the stranger is. They realize there's like this whole fight that happens. They after they had captured him, but the Harfoots help him out in that binds, literally, that he was bound up. And so they realize that he is not Sauron, that he is actually one of the was it Ishtar, which is like a wizard. Like he says wise one or wizard. I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I'm like 100, I would say close to 199.9% sure that's Gandalf. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Gandalf. It has to be
at this point, yeah. Especially
at this point, dude, come on.
They've done too much.
Ain't no way that's Saruman or the other one. What was his name? The one that was in the Hobbit, the Forest one.
Radagast.
Dude, ain't no way. Like, it's and then when he spoke to them. His personality, when it really showed his personality a lot more, it's like, dude, that is Gandalf. Like, how Gandalf could be like a little silly, like when they were like trying to figure out what direction to go to. He's like, you know what? I smell something sweet in that direction. That's like a very like Gandalf thing to say.
In my opinion, that's them basically telling us that that's Gandalf.
Dude, come on.
Because that's something that he, repeats to Frodo in the Mines of Moria.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, that's right. So, dude, yeah. I know that like Rich probably knows from like season 2. They probably like actually say whether he is, but I'm Like until I see that he's called some other name, I'm gonna call him Gandalf. Like that is gonna be Gandalf to me, because
Yeah.
and like I'm actually like blown away. Like I feel like the actor really sells it pretty well too. He does a good job.
So I need to correct myself. I said that the group of people was called the ascetic, but no, that's just one of the characters. There's the ascetic, there's the dweller, and the nomad.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they're the mystics, right?
Yes,
The Mystics. Okay, that's the name of the group.
That's
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, just to be devil's advocate for Radagast, I just want to say one thing. Okay, we don't know how many psychedelic mushrooms Radagast has eaten over the years.
Mm.
And there's a complete, there's possible that this stranger eats tons and tons of psychedelic mushrooms as he's traveling with the Harfoots, and then becomes Radagast the Brown.
Well, see, the reason for my argument for it being Gandalf is that it's literally what happened at the end is literally what happens in The Hobbit and in The Lord of the Rings. A halfling follows off with Gandalf. So, Gandalf brings on Bilbo's to an adventure, brings on Frodo's for an adventure, and so it's very fitting that here we go, here's another halfling following Gandalf on an adventure. So like that's what my argument was. That's where I saw it. The personality was there. It was just so, I mean, look, like I said, we could be wrong, but like, dude, at this point,
I feel like people would get angry. People would be angry if we were wrong, basically, because
people probably already know. Like, let's be real.
People know.
But but at this point, like, all signs point to it being Gandalf. Like, it just, I don't know. That's what I'm seeing.
Rich, do they make it to Rune or wherever they're planning on going to in the second season? You could say yes or no. I don't think we know anything about it, but
there's not an easy answer. I would just they definitely go on a journey. There is a journey to be had. a journey of self. I will give you a journey of self-discovery for both characters.
Interesting. And look, see that right there just cements that it's Gandalf even more, because we all know that adventures with Gandalf are never in a straight line. Never in a straight line.
I want to be clear. I am not saying anything other than both characters will find out more about themselves.
But so the mystics are so dead set on this being Sauron until they realize, oh wait, it's the other one. It's the Istar. We actually do get to meet Sauron in this.
Yes.
And by the end of this season,
we do.
Although he's not named Sauron. I don't think they name him as Sauron, but he says that he goes by many names. He's been around forever. He lists off of things of ways that Galadriel has helped him achieve his goal, and then he just kind of disappears after he provides the knowledge of how to unite this ore and embed it into the ores that they have so that they can accentuate its power, which is a really interesting, I think it's an interesting way of introducing the three rings of power to the Elven kings, because I guess I didn't know, I don't know the story of like how the rings were presented to each of the kings and like of the different people. I just kind of assumed they were gifts that, Sauron knew what fashion sense each race liked, and was just like, these guys are gonna like something elegant but flashy. Give them a nice stone. I'm assuming the dwarves are more like gold and bronze and just kind of like more rugged. No idea what the humans' rings look like, but I think they have silver rings in the Lord of the Rings movies. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. I just kind of assumed they were gifts. But I think it's actually a smarter idea, and I don't know if this is a Tolkien idea or if this is a Rings of Power idea, but I think it's a smart idea to make the elves feel like they created the rings themselves, even though it was clearly Halbrand or Sauron who put the idea into their heads.
Yeah, like he.
Yeah, I think
like it's pretty much like him playing a game of chess. Like him just like he's controlling pretty much like everything. Like he was the one that, and he just being very coy about it. Like, oh, just like putting the suggestions. Like he knows exactly what he's saying. And I know that you said that they didn't actually name Halbrand Sauron, but he is Sauron. Like, I mean, they had the whole imagery where like he puts Galadriel in kind of like that trance state, and there's like that moment where it shows them back on that raft, and they're both standing there, and in the reflection of the water is Sauron.
Yeah, there's so many great visuals in all of the like throughout the entire show.
And then you see him at the end, like he's trekking over to Mount Doom, and isn't it crazy? Like now you see the Southlands, it's pretty much formed and like it's becoming Mordor now. It said Mordor on there.
Yeah, that's because I remember watching it, and at first I was like, the Southlands, that's got to be that's Mordor, like that's got to be it. And it didn't say it, and then I felt so vindicated when the little location thing came up, and it just Mordor. It warmed the cockles in my heart,
So in my head, whenever I picture Mordor on the map of Middle Earth, I guess I don't visualize it as like a particularly southern. It is southern, but I always see it as like an eastern thing.
Yeah,
it's on the east side of the map. So I didn't make that connection until I by the second or third episode, after they started talking a little bit about like when they made the connection of the sign of the Southlands being Sauron's sign, that's when I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
I did think it was really funny. Like, I laughed. Where instead of having Adar say, this isn't the Southlands anymore, it's Mordor, he just kind of smiles. And I almost wonder if they weren't planning on naming it then and there. Because they didn't in the script. So you could tell they didn't do it in the script. They just kind of like left it open-ended. But I think someone on top was just like, people watching this are really stupid. Let's just let them know. And then they had that text like the Southlands burn away into Mordor, and it's like like heavy metal fonts, and it's just like whoa. So I laughed at that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Right. Well, for those of us that have seen Lord of the Rings like 900 times, like when it showed what the Southlands look like, and then like the whole icon, like it's like, oh, okay, well that's what's gonna become Mordor. And I think it was really cool that we got to see Mordor before it became what it became, and like how in a way it's you got to see the Mount Doom like kind of becoming what it did, becoming Mount Doom, and then it burning away the land, and it was really cool, like the visuals that we got, and a lot of nods to the future that we got from that. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the confrontation between Halbrand and Adar was interesting. Like you could tell like he really wanted to take him out. Right.
Yeah, like, do you remember me? And Adar's like, no, ew. But Halbrand obviously remembered him. So
but I wonder if that's because Halbrand is a master of disguise.
Sure,
that's not his true form, right? That's what I was thinking.
Like I think it's a conceit for us, right? That we're like, oh yeah, but I think that Adar looks at him and really does not know who he is.
Yeah. No, yeah. I agree. And I was,
I think I was Halbrand was like checking he's like, hey, do you remember me? And he's like, no. And then he's like, okay, cool. Coast is clear. Like, he kind of knew what was going to happen after that.
I like when Galadriel was like, when she kind of like realizes that he's not who he is. And she was like, and, she was talking about that the emblem that he had. And I like, he's like pretty much like, I told you, I took it off a dead guy. Like it's like he's kind of been like telling the truth. I mean, he's being deceitful, but he was still kind of telling the truth. So
But also, that's a crazy leap to make on Galadriel's behalf.
Right.
All of a sudden, well, I guess he does parrot a line that is it Adar also mentions where it's like power over flesh or something like that. He repeats that line to Celebrimbor, who Celebrimbor repeats it to the king to like try to get the king to like king's approval to start working on that, and that's what gets Galadriel thinking that maybe I should check in on this guy. And they go she goes into the annals of history, but it's still a crazy leap for Galadriel to make, where this line of kings ended 1,000 years ago. I wonder if this guy is the evil guy I've been looking for all along.
Yeah, I mean,
that's TV.
No,
it's TV.
I think it's too. He's. That's what I meant. Also, like now I can talk a little bit more about it and being able to watch it again. Right. If you guys go back and just watch the season like as quick as you can, it's just fun to see the Halbrand parts, right? And you're like, oh my god, come on, is right there, you know. It's almost like the end of Usual Suspects, and then you can kind of go back and rewatch it, and you're like, yeah, it was there the whole time.
Okay,
Like,
I see what you're
right
talking about. It's like after you've seen the main meat of the story, you start to notice all the small details, kind of like in Lord of the Rings. Like you start to notice all the small little things. So yeah, no, I can totally get where you're coming from. Like it's like, okay, now that I know that this guy is Sauron, let me look for the clues, and then they probably drop like little things here and there that, like, you know, maybe whether it was intentional or not, this is who he is.
It's kind of like Twin Peaks, you know. Once you've watched the whole show and then go back and like rewatch it, everything makes sense.
You know, there's a plot twist. They canceled Rings of Power after season 2.
Oh, I would be so. It was like when Heroes was canceled. I was just so angry that it was canceled because I just wanted the end. You know, like I wanted them to be able to finish it. And
Heroes is one of those things where like it started so strong, then they got hit probably like hardest by that 2008 writer's strike.
Oh yeah, actually,
and it just kind of meandered for 3 seasons until it fell out of rotation.
No, you're right. I actually I looked into it, and they said that what really like messed it up was that they had all these kind of like auxiliary, you know, like replacement writers that were like trying to continue the story, and it just the quality just really died off from that.
Yeah, it was basically they hired non-union writers, and they mucked it all up basically.
So hopefully does not happen to the Rings of Power here. I need to see.
I think
more forging.
I think with the Rings of Power, they have an obvious show Bible in the sense that they know what's going to happen. Like they have a 5-season plan. Supposedly, they've had a 5-season plan since they announced the show back in 2016, 2017. So I expect them to have an outline of the big events that need to happen. And I think it's going to end with Isildur not being able to, you know, curse the ring into the fire.
Dang, how do you know that?
Just a hunch. I think it's a hunch.
Oh, it's a hunch?
So
okay.
Here's
Dakota, I was going to say, Dakota, stop trying to tell everybody spoilers, man.
Here's what I think is the 5-season layout. Rich, you know, you can, you know, swat this away if I'm wrong, but this first season is the elves. The second season is giving the rings to the dwarves. The third season is men. Fourth season is the One Ring's creation, and the final season is the War of the Ring.
Oh, that would be
the original
sick.
War of the Ring. That
would be a very educated, intelligent map that they might follow pretty closely to what you may be describing, sir.
Rich has no spoilers, obviously, but so... yeah, he's got a smirk, so either I'm totally right or totally wrong. And what made me think that is they ended this season with the creation of the 3 rings, and then they had that they turned the Rings of Power poem that Tolkien wrote for the creation of the rings into a song in the credits, and I'm just like, okay, first is the elves, then the dwarves, then the humans, then we find out that there's one more ring to rule them all, and then what happens after that? Well, all the races they go and have at it. So yeah, that would be how I would do it if I was running a show called The Rings of Power, and I have to continually add new rings into each season.
That would that would be sick to get that war like actually on screen, because we've gotten like glimpses of it, but it's always like a callback, in Lord of the Rings. But like to actually like visualize it, like they really need to like go all out on that one, because
And what a genius way for the Jackson films to start. They have that legend of the Rings of Power, and then they show the outcome that happened 3,000 years ago. And this whole trilogy is based on the fallout of what happens 3,000 years ago, and like how the people 3,000 years later have to deal with the mistakes made back in the day, back in the Rings of Power day. So yeah, I think that's a really fascinating thought, and I really liked the end of the season. I liked it a lot more than the start of the season.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing how Elrond and Isildur like eventually like kind of become friends.
Mm-hmm. Oh, another thing. Yeah, Isildur and Elrond need to become friends. That's true. But one thing that is mentioned is that Galadriel has a husband at this point, Celeborn, whom we have met in the Lord of the Rings movie. So she believes that her husband is dead. Obviously, he's still alive. So we'll see Celeborn at some point.
Oh, and before we like kind of like leave it off, the whole Durin and Elrond thing with the Mithril, like they need Mithril because the elves are dying off.
That. Yeah.
That was really interesting, dude. I love Durin. Like I love his character so much.
I do love the dwarf stuff. Tremendously, because it's such a it's in my opinion the most interesting of the peoples of Middle Earth, because like these are dudes who just like kind of stout small guys who live with huge beards in the darkness within mountains, and like their entire goal is just to accumulate wealth for themselves. It's kind of funny, but it's also like really cool. So it's seeing how they develop that society within the show is fascinating to me.
And then I'm wondering if if we're gonna get a glimpse, a sneak, or we got a sneak peek of something. I wonder if we're gonna get it in season 2.
Oh yeah, the Balrog. Yeah. So yeah,
that was crazy. I was like, oh no, heck no, not the Balrog and the Mithril mine. That's not the kind of pest you want to have in your mind.
They dug too deep and too greedily,
but I think
they awoke something in the deep.
I think that's why the king was so adamant about keeping it closed. He knew that there was something in there.
Oh, I like that.
Because like, why would the king be so hard-headed? Like I know there's got to be a reason to be that hard-headed. Yeah. He's like, dude, I'm trying to save a whole race of people. Like, why are you being like that? But like, obviously he knows that there's something there. So he's like, no, we want to keep this closed off to keep this thing away from us.
Yeah, Rich, you were gonna say something.
Oh, sorry.
Earlier.
Oh no, I just think like just kind of touching on I think that the story is so well told in just season 1 from the dwarves that they're the most human and relatable.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I was being facetious last week when I was tongue-in-cheek saying that Elrond did nothing wrong and not going to visit Durin for 20 years.
Oh yeah, obviously.
But like almost in that moment, right? That's the most human any of the characters have been. I don't think the Númenorian. That was terrible. All the characters from Númenor, though they're to me still many. They're still caricatures.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like I can't seem to get a grasp on like what I'm supposed to be feeling about these Numenorians, because at this point they're more of a fantasy race than the elves. Like they're like a legendary human race that we're meeting for the first time, but they just kind of seem like people, even though we're supposed to believe that they're higher than normal man. It's a little confusing. And,
Right. Like, you know, in a way, like meeting one of them in, like, you know, the, say, like modern day the Lord of the Rings films is like, you know, seeing a unicorn. It's like, oh my gosh, like, this man is from like a civilization of dying people, like, you know, like people you never see. And like Aragorn is like, you know, from like a small little knit group of rangers. So yeah, no, you're right. It is like a legendary group of people, because the elves are very much still there in Lord of the Rings, and so are the dwarves, and like pretty much like every other creature is existent except for these individuals. I mean, which they probably down the line, you know, maybe parts of them become, you know, like Rohan and Gondor, like, you know, down the line. It's just
perhaps,
they don't, you know, it's just they don't keep to the ways like some of these like smaller groups do.
I guess my issue, and I think Rich's issue as well, isn't their lineage per se, but their lack of believable world building. Like I'm having a hard time understanding their socio-political structure, even though it's the most vast and beautiful thing that we see in the show is probably Numenor, and their whole ecosystem kind of runs like the Stoic Greek peoples, but the individual lives of the characters feel hollow.
Yeah,
if that makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like,
is that what you're trying to get at, Rich?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's like with a dead horse, but I really do feel as a member of the future, right, that there are things that I watched and saw that made even those characters on the rewatch of season 1 not as hollow.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that there's a little bit of fleshing out that happens.
Yes. Okay. And that fleshing out makes me go, oh, you know what? I see so and so, and now I get it. You know, like it's kind of that kind of
thing. It introduces the characters to a new light, and
you can
look at them with a new facet. Yeah.
It's almost like if they would have, instead of done whatever 8 episodes, right? If they do 12, I think you finish the season in a different way. You're like, all right, but I get why they needed to kind of take a pause, take a break. You know, that you need something, but it's just weird. It almost feels like if Numenor because Galadriel goes to Numenor, right? You can't delay that Numenorian storyline, right? You have to you can't just have her go to a random island and be like, oh, I'm just going to be here and then leave real quick and nobody cares. And in having to have her in Numenor, and I don't know if that's the Tolkien path, right? For me, this is like the show right now is the canon for me. But if somehow like you could have avoided Numenor and introduced it almost in the second season and fleshed it out more, I don't know. But I mean, it's just a question of pacing and how you like your storytelling, you know.
There were definite pacing issues this season, and there was definitely contrivances that I still don't like. You know, I still feel it's a little bit of a stretch that Galadriel talked this, you know, nation state that has been, you know, on their own for X number of centuries into crossing the ocean to help this small town in the Southlands. They saved all of 25 people. You know, that's really what they did. But I understand that contrivances need to occur to move the plot along. And again, there's the truncation of history within the Second Age into a single moment in time, which is the forging of the rings, which is what they're trying to do. You know, obviously, in Tolkien's history, this is elapsing, like some of these events are elapsing over the course of centuries and millennia, but they don't have that kind of time in this show. They're just bringing all the good stuff and throwing it into like one show that's happening at this single moment, basically. Do you guys have any final thoughts for our second episode of the Rings of Power watch?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is capping off season 1, so we're done with season 1. I'm actually glad that we did these episodes, because it really gave me the opportunity to go and watch this, and honestly, by the end, it was definitely worth the watch. Like I really did enjoy this. Like you said, like I wasn't really grabbed in those like first handful of episodes, but I know you said by season 7, I would say, the build up towards the end of episode. I know you said by episode 7, it's what like really like grabbed you, but like the build up towards the end of episode 5 and then like episode 6 is like really what like I was like, oh my gosh, like it really like got me from then on. So yeah. No, it was good. I liked it.
Rich, what are your thoughts on the end of the season and I guess the season as a whole?
So I just think that the more time spent with the characters in the show, the more I really enjoy it. One of my I think one of the things that I was a little bit angry about, and also it felt like I was watching it alone. There wasn't so much buzz. There was nobody at work that I could bug and talk to about it. So I wasn't having, there was no other, I feel like nobody else was excited, at least in my
circle,
my small bubble, my circle, and that decreased it. I feel like a lot. I was a little angry. I don't really like that they ran 2 storylines of who's this guy, and I know we got one answer, but that's why like even the Southlands turning to Mordor, like it was also vindicating, because it was like, yes, I wanted answers, like I just want some more. It's about history, right?
Yeah.
It's about something that we know essentially how most of this is going to go. So in many ways, what I want to see is the interplay of the characters, the emotion of the scene, the kind of epic battles, right? Like that should be what's happening here. And then I don't like the vagary whodunits. It would be, I don't know. Let me pick a leader who's not offensive. I don't know. You're watching some movie about the history of Italy, and there's a guy named Tony Mamaluke, I don't know, and then you later find out that he's actually Benito Mussolini. Like plot twist. The guy who you thought was nice making ice cream is really going to be the leader of the Black Shirt Rebellion.
Tony Mamaluke.
So yeah, I don't know. That was the worst real Italian name that I've ever thought of. I don't know why, but it was just kind of that. I don't think I'm particularly, as a consumer, a huge fan of that. And I think part of it is I want to learn more about the characters that I know about. So now when you spend 8 episodes obfuscating that in a way, I think it took away from it. So that's why like Halbrand's performance is so great throughout, when you know that he's definitely Sauron, because it's like, oh my God, he was literally telling them the entire time. It's, you kind of enjoy it more.
Yeah. So Anthony, I'm pretty sure you knew that Halbrand was Sauron as well. I did personally. Like I just knew from social media that this character was Sauron.
I had heard the name like kind of thrown around, and I was kind of like, oh, is this the guy? But like the thing is that like it doesn't really matter without the context of like actually watching it.
That's a really good point, because throughout it I was just like, I don't really get this guy's plot. I don't get, like, if he's Sauron, I don't really understand why he's doing all this. But then it finally all comes together. He's just manipulating people to eventually get the end result that he wants.
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for listening to us here for our 101st episode of Project Geekology. The next episode, the third part of our Rings of Power-thon, which will cover the first 4 episodes of Season 2 of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, will not be next week. It'll be the following week. Whether there will be a release next week, we're not entirely sure, but both Anthony and I have stuff going on, so we're gonna figure that out. But again, thanks so much for listening. If you want to check us out on any of our socials, you can find all that in the show notes down below. And if however you're listening allows you to provide a review of sorts, Anthony, I think you said you wanted what? Five?
I want a
5 stars.
I want a juicy, medium rare 5-star review.
Yes, like extremely juicy. Like when you keep McDonald's fries in a bag for too long,
dude,
and they're just soggy.
Dude,
like,
that's so bad. Like that's like at that point I'm putting 1 star. If we're getting juicy, if juicy is soggy McDonald's fries that you left in your car for a day, like that.
Oh,
that's just,
yeah. Okay. Let's stick to like rare steaks for your review.
I was like, Dakota, we're trying to get 5 stars, not negative 5 stars. Okay.
All right, guys. On this podcast, we do not say goodbye. We say namaste. It means more than just farewell. It means go towards goodness.
We also end the podcast with the Wolverine.
Bye, guys.
Bye.